But the final drama in China came after the checkered flag. So let's deep dive what went on, and specifically with Ferrari, who had a double disqualification. Pierre Gasly, 2, missing out on a chance to score points in Alpine, finished 11th, would have been 9th, but he too got thrown out. So firstly, Ferrari's race. Disappointing from the team. We've already seen Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton have the contact on the opening lap. Leclerc had front wing damage from that, cost him 20 to 30 points of downforce, which should have been really significant, but it wasn't. And Leclerc managed to keep a very strong pace considering that. Potentially, it just rebalanced the car slightly from being on the nose, trying to protect the front left tyre that was very vulnerable, just putting a bit more understeer into it, and it made the car more drivable. And as the degradation was a lot lower on Sunday than Saturday, he could drive around it. And he didn't seem to lose out too much, even though he thought without the damage, he could have been right up the road. Hamilton, meanwhile, made changes from the sprint to the race, tried to get more front end into the car as well, and think in the race trim with this front left degradation, it's going to be really difficult. But it just made the car harder to drive for him. And even though he qualified badly on Saturday compared to his sprint quality of pole, he still thought the race was going to come to him on Sunday, but it just wasn't the case. So difficult pace for Ferrari. We also heard team orders between the two Ferrari drivers as Hamilton's pace fell away. And for the first time really in the race, he was actually slower than Leclerc, even though Leclerc had the damaged car. So it was a strange situation that the damaged car of Leclerc was actually finally quicker than Hamilton through the weekend. We heard the team orders over the radio. We didn't at the time hear the first part of it, which was Lewis Hamilton suggesting he drop behind Charles Leclerc. So all very magnanimous at Ferrari, and team harmony certainly in full strike, even if the points are not coming for them because of the double DQ. So Leclerc was the quicker Ferrari in the race, and by the time he got past Hamilton, had a chance to try and get onto terms with George Russell, but potentially because he was missing a bit of front downforce, couldn't get the car rotated, and we heard the radio message of exasperation as he couldn't get the traction the Mercedes had through turns 12 and 13 onto the back straight, and following that closely for so long ended up costing him some tyre wear there. And by the end of the race, he was really struggling compared to Max Verstappen, who came up behind. And Max put a really nice move on Charles as well towards the end for 4th position. Leclerc covers the middle of the road. It's a sensible ploy, but you know that when you have the tyre advantage, you can actually pass inside or outside at this first corner, as we saw throughout the weekend. So Max goes to the outside, manages to get his nose into the clear air here, and he's got the grip to just release the brakes and hold it there as Charles is stuck to the apex. You get to this point, and Leclerc will notice that there's a Red Bull on the outside, so he just has to get on the throttle to make sure that Max isn't going to go right around the outside. But in doing that, Charles just drifts wide of this turn 2 apex here, and with Max's better front grip at this point, he's able to rotate the car and get himself really nicely positioned as Charles just runs wide, carrying the speed in the end through the right, deterring the outside move there. It allows Max a great opportunity to then read the situation, get the switch back, come underneath him, and when you've got more front tyre grip, making a move around this circuit is quite a nice feeling because you can go inside or outside. I have to say, I've not seen too many around the outside of turn 3 before, and I think that's what probably Charles was thinking as well, trying to just cover it all off in turn 2, but it's a lovely sweep around the outside for Verstappen. So that brings us to our final question then from Brendan. Why does being underweight / having excessive wear matter so much? Well, it's against the rules and it's a performance gain. So you have to have a minimum weight limit that all the teams are trying to get to, and the plank is allowed to wear a certain amount. And both of these things, as with many rules in Formula One, you want to get right up to the limit of, as all the teams, because the performance of everyone is so close. So the weight limit is now 800 kilograms, but Ferrari with Leclerc and Pierre Gasly came in at 799. Now they blame this on the tyre wear, which is what we saw with George Russell in Spa last time out. We can have a look actually at a graph which shows just the mammoth stint that Gasly did, being the first of the one-stoppers to pit on lap 10, so would have naturally had more tyre wear. And all the teams were clearly banking on this being a two-stop race. And that's shown really by the amount of early stops there, right in a two-stop window. Pit somewhere between lap 10 and 15, and then pit again somewhere around lap 30 and try to go to the end of the race. But because the tyres were just going and going and going, they stayed out, and that was the Lance Stroll learnings. Leclerc, meanwhile, actually pits on lap 15, so he's one of the latest of the first batch to stop, but still, Ferrari saying that the tyre wear was the reason they were 1 kilo underweight. I still think the reality is it's a lot of factors here. The tyre wear, yes, the tyre wear of potentially 1 kilo might be plausible across a set, but when you look at all the rest of them that are able to get by with pitting at a similar rate, having surely similar wear figures as well, you think that probably Ferrari and Alpine in this case are pushing the envelope too much and haven't baked in enough margin for their numbers. And the same really could be said for Lewis Hamilton as well. Was okay on the weight, but too much plank wear for Hamilton meant that he also fell foul of the rules. You have a 10 mil plank. It's allowed to wear to 9 millimeters at the end of a race, and Hamilton was down to 8.5. So you're allowed 10% of wear. He was at basically 15% of wear. Now, the reason you have these rules is because otherwise everyone would try and run as light as possible. The minimum weight is there to try and achieve equal competition with a fair, targetable weight. And you don't want to run through all the planks as well for reliability concerns and cost as well. So these rules are in place. For 1 millimeter of ride height, which is what Hamilton probably should have gone up to not go over the limit of plank, where you raise the car, but you lose 1/10 approximately of performance per lap for a millimeter of ride height. So Ferrari, that's why you try and squeeze the ride height down as much as you can. The ground effect cars really working at that lower operating window. Smooth circuit in China, they found some pace, but probably just too aggressive on the setup. They needed to raise the car and lose that 1/10 of lap time, which over 56 laps equates to 5.5 seconds. So a significant amount, and Ferrari, they're just risking it too much on that count. And then on the weight, it's probably another kilo or two, well, certainly another 1 kilo, but probably 2 that they needed to have on the car. Problem is, that's about sort of 700ths for a lap, at least half a tenth to 700ths for 1 or 2 kilos on board. And you add that up, and you're about 2.5 seconds around the race. So it's all tiny margins for the teams. Ferrari clearly pushing the envelope too much, as was Alpine on a difficult weekend for them. And they remain the only team without a point in 2025.